Okay, vino Adonay Nohenu Alenu Maaseh Adenu Kohen Alenu Maaseh Adenu Koheneu. We're going to pick off where we left off last Sunday in the book Shaare Orah. In this the printing that's in the thumbnail, we're basically on page Kof Samech Zayin above the line, and we're on page Kof Samech Vav below the line. This is a book that takes the text of the Shaare Orah and then brings a significant perush on the bottom with all kinds of sources for what he's talking about, what the Ramchal, what the Rabbi Katilia is really discussing, because the book Shaare Orah itself is very short. It's a small book, but it's a lot of stuff that's back and helps to bring the background, and that's why I love this perush on this book. Okay, so we're going to talk today. He mentioned over here. I'll just repeat a little bit of what we said last time. He said, Umin Chamishim Shaare Binah, there's 50 gates of Binah, right? We talked about the fact that there are 32 netivot of Chokhmah, 32 ways of wisdom, right? Min Chamishim Shaare Binah, there are 50 gates of Binah, okay? And then Ba'uba Ayin Bet Gesharim, and there are 72 bridges. Haba'im mimayim shel chesed, that come from the water of chesed. What is chesed? What's the gematria of chesed? 72. Okay, and right below the binah, what's the sfira that's right, not below, but the sfira that's next after binah? Chesed, right? Keter, chokhmah, binah, chesed, right? With me?
That was Gevurah, though.
Okay, you're thinking right below the binah.
Right.
I'm talking about if you're looking at it not in according to the...
Oh, you're saying linear.
Linear.
Okay,
the linear presentation of the sfirot, or the igulim, if we want to be more specific, okay, which are the circles, okay? Therefore, you have keters on top, chokhmah, binah, and then right underneath there is chesed, right? Correct, okay? So what he's basically saying is going through each one of the sfirot. For keter, we only have one thing about the keter, which he discussed is the 13 midot of the diukna, of the beard, right? Because the keter is the skull, and that's the head, that's the beard, that's the diukna, and that's the 13 attributes, Amonai, Kel, Rachum, V'chanun, which are called the 13 attributes of Rachamim. And this is what Rabbi Cordovero built out his whole, one second. This is what Rabbi Cordovero built his whole book on, Tomer Dvorah. He built Tomer Dvorah on the 13 principles. Yes, 13 midot of Hashem, but not what's brought in the Torah, what's brought in Micha, in the Tanakh. Miel kamocha noseh avon v'vera pesha. That's the Tashlich.
The one that comes Tashlich. Okay.
Correct, that's the Tashlich, okay? It's the same thing, it's just different words, but they're hinting to the same midot, and those are called the 13 midot, those are called the 13 midot of Rachamim, right? Then we have the Chokhmah, which is we said 32 netivot, 32 paths. 22 are the letters, because there are 22 letters in the Hebrew alphabet. And then there are 10 sfirot. That's where we get 32. Then last week we talked about the Nun Shaare Binah, the 50 gates of Binah, which we discussed that Moshe Rabbeinu had access to all of them except for one, right? And we said there's only one rabbi that had access to all of them, and his name was Rabbi Akiva. And that gives us a little bit more context.
Access to, I missed it. Access to
50 gates of Binah, Shaare Binah. Okay?
Oh, you're saying he had access to 49.
Moshe Rabbeinu had access to 49. The 50th one was not, he didn't have access to, okay? And Rabbi Akiva basically was able to have access to that. It's interesting because we're not talking here about prophecy, okay? Why would Rabbi Akiva have access to a shower of... Guys, can you keep it down a little bit? Can you keep it down a little bit? Can you keep it down a little bit? Yeah. Just a little bit. Thank you so much.
Nice background.
Beautiful background.
Yeah, beautiful. Let's make it
It's getting much better. His show is gonna come soon. Anyway, so we come into Shaare Binah, right? 50 Shaare Binah. We said Rabbi Akiva had access to all 50, and then we discussed a little bit last week of why would it be that Moshe Rabbeinu 49 and Rabbi Akiva had 50, and the reason is because Rabbi Akiva was a Baal Tshuva. Rabbi Akiva started as Am Haaretz. He had to work his way up, and maybe that's the concept of Bimakom Shebalet Tshuva Omdim En tzadikim gemurim yichamin lamod. What does that mean? That a person who's a Baal Tshuva has because they tasted the sin and separated, there's an understanding that they have a little bit of a higher, not higher level prophet. No one is higher than Moshe Rabbeinu. Rabbi Akiva was not a prophet at all. Okay? But with the Binah, the understanding of the Binah, why is it called Shaare Binah? This is what we discussed last week. Why gates?
You have to have the right key to get it.
Why is it Netivot for Chokhmah and Sha'arim for Binah?
A gate can open and close.
A gate is something person enters in. The Binah is feminine. So a Sha'ar is something you open and you go inside, which represents the feminine. That's the Binah. Whereas Netivot are paths, which are, right? So it's direction. That is the Zachar. Okay, that's the masculine. Okay. Okay, so now we're talking about the Ayin Bet Gesharim, the 72 bridges, okay? And why is Ayin Bet? Because the word Chesed, the gematria of Chesed is 72, okay? Chesed, the gematria Ayin Bet. Chesed, the word Chesed in Hebrew, the gematria is Ayin Bet. Leramez, to teach, to hint, Shehashpat HaChesed lebinyan kol ha'olamot, that the influence of the Chesed in the structure of all the worlds, Hu ayidei ayin bet shemot hakodesh, is by way of the 72 holy names. What's that talking about?
Where's it from? It's from the verses.
Very good. We just read it a couple of weeks ago. There are 3 verses in Parashat Beshalach. Correct. You take the first letter from the first pasuk, the last letter from the second pasuk, and the first letter from the third pasuk, and you have triplets. It's a name of 72 triplets. There's another name of 72 when you have Yud Ke Vav Ke with spelled out, right? When you when you have Yud Vav Daled, Hey Yod, Vav Yod Vav, and then Hey Yod. That adds up to 72. That's another way if you have 72.
Hey is not Hey Yud Aleph?
No.
Hey spelled as Hey Yud.
Hey Yud.
You're talking about gematria.
Hey can be spelled in 3 ways.
The full gematria. Well, then, if you can spell 3 ways, then how do you know what the full gematria is?
First of all, there are 4 well-known serufim of the name of Yud Ke Vav Ke. There's the one that's valued at 72. Okay, that's called Malay Yudin. And then there's the one of 63 that's called Malay Hehin. And then you have the one that's the Ma, which is the 45. That's Malay Alfin. And then you have the 52, the one that's 52, the Ban, not Ben, Ban, okay? And that is the duplicates. Hey, hey, vav, vav, hey, hey. Add it up, it's 50, it's a 52. So that's Yud Ke Vav Ke. Yud Ke Vav Ke has a 45, has a 52, has a 63, and has a 72. Here we're talking about a different 72. Here we're talking about the 72 that you brought up, Stephen. Very good. From these 3 Pesukim in Parashat Beshalach, that each of them have exactly 72 letters. And through combining the letters in different ways, like we just discussed, you get a name of 72 triplets. You know what I'm talking about, Aviva? You're with me on that one?
Triplets. 72 3-letter.
72 3-letter. Correct.
Okay.
Okay. And what's 72 times 3? I'm not mistaken if math is correct, it's 216, which is another significance, but we'll get to that, okay? So it's talking about the chesed. This is a remez, a hint to what? To the 72 names, HaKodesh, Mishem Ayin Bet, Shem Chayut Kol HaOlamot. This is the sustenance for all of the world. This name that we have of the 72 triplets is the sustenance for the whole world, right? Olam Hesed Yibaneh. What does that mean? The world is built on Chesed. Avraham Avinu, he's the first of the Avot. His midah, of course, was Hesed, because the only way to build the world is to start with Hesed.
Yeah, it started with 10, but it didn't work.
Well, God, no, it's not that it didn't work. God wanted to start the world with Din, but he looked in the future and saw that the people couldn't live by it, and so he then mixed in Rachamim, and that's why you have the first part of Breshit that all has the word Elokim, which is Midat Hadin, and then when you talk about Elu Toledot Hashamayim ve'aretz behi bara'em biyom asot Yud Ke Vav Ke Elokim eretz v'shamayim. right? So we see when it's talking about the actual, now the world that's going to happen with man as part of it, now we have Yud Kei Vav Kei Elokim. Why? Because Yud Kei Vav Kei is the Rachamim. We also see that we discussed this also by the Parasha B'Chet HaEgel, yes? We have the first Luchot, which are all Din. And then we have the Luchot Shniot, which is Rachamim, which includes the Rachamim. The Luchot Rishonot were basically, we were supposed to go right into Israel, and that would have been the whole story. But because of Chet HaEgel, there was a detour, and then another detour of the Chet HaMeraglim. Okay, let's continue on. Umashini Krem Gesharim. So why are they called Gesharim? Why are they called bridges? Be'er HaRamak, Be'or Yakar. Ramak, Rabbi Moshe Cordovero. What's Or Yakar? That's the Ramak's Perush on the Zohar. It's called Or Yakar. He has a Perush on the Zohar, and he has a Perush on the Tikkunei Zohar. It's called Or Yakar. You with me?
Yeah.
Right before the Ari. He's the last. If you want to compare, just like you have the Rishonim and you have the Shulchan Aruch, which is the last of the Rishonim and really the beginning of the Achronim. That's Rav Yosef Karo and the Ramah. Yes, that's in the halachic world. In the Nigle and the Nista world, there was also a transition that happened between Rabbi Cordovero, which is the end of the period of the Rishonim, or the last of the Rishonim, and then the Arizal, which begins the period of what we would call the Achronim in the Kabbalah. We don't use those terms really; those are usually just reserved for the Nigle. But there was a significant revelation that the Arizal was given permission to reveal that had not been permitted to be revealed by any of the rabbis that preceded him. With me? Okay. So he explains in Zohar Chadash Shir Hashirim in Ramak in his explanation or his perush on the Zohar Chadash Shir Hashirim. It's giving you the source. You can look at it if you want to see it inside. Elu Ayin Bet Shemot. These 72 names. Hem Sod Ayin Bet Gesharim. This is the secret of the 72 bridges. Leha. What's the purpose of a bridge?
Connect one space to another. They can't be.
Doesn't just connect. Bridge doesn't. It's ma'avir. It brings you from one side to the other side.
Without that bridge.
Right.
Correct. So it's what it's. Look at the language. Ayin bet gesharim leha'avir to transfer. Very good. Good word. Et memeh hachesed livnei Yisrael. The waters of chesed to bnei Yisrael. Okay, let's continue on. And because each one of these 72 names has 3 letters, right? These are triplets. These are triplets of Hebrew letters, yeah? I'm not sure what he means by this, and I looked at it a couple of times, okay?
They can't be enumerated.
They can't be, I'm going to translate it word for word, and then we'll see what it really means. Im kolzeh, with all this, en lemitziuto. There is, it's not for, it's inessential, okay? Tachlit velo mispar, that there's a tachlit, which is an end, and a counting, which means somehow he's trying to say that even though there are 372 triplets, the counting is not, because it adds up to 216. It's really 72, not 216.
Because the 3 are really
one.
They're a unit. It's 3 that's a unit.
Yeah.
Okay? And each letter has a malach, which means how many malachim are there? 216.
Well, each letter
has a malach. And underneath that malach, yesh kama machanot kedoshim. There are many camps of holy spiritual beings. Le'en tachlit, with no limitation, an infinite, shall we say. Le'en mispar, that are uncountable. Kulam po'alim pe'ulat Hashem. All of them are acting in the actions of God, right? Because none of the malachim do anything without Hashem's permission, right? These are all messengers to deliver the message, but the message is coming from one place. Shameshim oto, and they serve him.
They serve the Sar. They serve the malach.
They
that's
serve God. Nobody serves no malach.
Wait, you said there's a malach.
Yep.
Who's in charge of the machaneh, of the sub-malachim.
Right.
You have the generals or the lieutenants. The lieutenants serve that general, that malach who's in charge of the machaneh.
I'm not sure I would. I'm not sure I would say that.
Thin ice for me.
A thin ice. I see the way it's worded. I have to look inside more detailed, and I'm sorry I didn't because I missed it. I understood it to mean Misham Mishimo Toz.
Okay, everyone is Mishamishim Hashem.
But God is
there's
El
a
Kana. Hierarchy, right? But
There's
the
a hierarchy.
hierarchy, so the message comes from on top, and the message comes through the malach to go to the Mishamishim, but it's still
But
coming
really, it's
from.
what?
Okay. And even if he means this, I don't think he really means that the malach is Mishamesh another malach.
They're following the orders, but they're still not Mishamesh.
That's right. Okay. Ayen Zohar Parashat. I didn't have a chance to look at this. Maybe I'll look at this and we could talk about it in 2 weeks because I'm not here next Sunday. Ayen Zohar Parashat Beshalach u Parashat Va'era. So he gives you two sources in the Zohar to look exactly what we're talking about. So Bli Neder, I will see if I can review that and see if we can get extra insight into what he's talking about. So again, we have the 13 of the Rachamim. That's the lowest part of the Keter, right? Then we have the Chokhmah. We have the 32, right? 22 Hebrew letters, 10 sfirot. Those are called netivot. Then we have, below that, we have the Binah, the 50 Sharim of Binah. And now we've just discussed the 72 Gisharim of the Chesed. Good? Okay. Umin Arba'im Mine Esh. And there are 40 types of fire. For which Sfirah do you think he's going to discuss now?
Sure.
Of course. Gvura. Okay. Shem Hagvura hu Shem Membet. What's the Shem Membet?
And Masaot.
Also Masaot, but the Masaot because it is.
The Machot of Shabbat.
The what? No, 39. What is the Shem Membet?
An acronym for something?
This is the Shem Membet. Ana Bekoach. You see the Ana Bekoach? How many words are in the Ana Bekoach? There are 42 letters. Right? Right. So this is, if you add this up,
6 words every line.
6 words.
7 lines.
This is, he loves this. Sam Trachtenberg's not here today, right? Right. These are basically 6. There are 7. Each one is right. So altogether, this is 72. These are, I'm sorry, this is 42 letters. Okay.
And acronyms.
And so right. So that basically is the Shem. What is the significance of the Shem Membet?
Membet 42. Okay. Significance of it.
So when we're going to read in 2 parashot from now, 3 parashot from now, that there was a young man whose name was. The one who built the Mishkan, the artisan for the Mishkan. No. Betzalel ben Uri ben Chul Matei Yehuda, right? What does Betzalel have to do with it? Okay, so Betzalel, how old was he? He's 13 years old. Done. Betzalel ben Uri ben Chur lematei Yehuda. He was the son of Chur, who was killed by the Chet Egel. That's correct. The son of Miriam, not Aaron. Chur is the son of Miriam. With Nachshon ben Amina, with Nachshon, because Miriam was married to Nachshon. They had a son, Hur, right? And so Betzalel. And what do we know about Betzalel?
He was a great artisan.
He was an art. And how did? What do you mean? So I mean, artisan. How did that work? How did he designed the Mishkan to the point where it was a situation where Moshe Rabbeinu was on the mountain. Moshe Rabbeinu was on the mountain. He comes down, and he says, "Have a good day." He comes down and he tells them to build the Aron, like we're reading our parasha right now, Truma, Asita Aron, Aseh Shittim, build all the Kelim, right? And then in parashat, at the end of parashat Truma, what does it discuss? Building the Mishkan. Beginning is the Kelim.
Describe that of order.
We'll see.
It's a certain order. Okay. So
Beginning is the Kelim, and then the end of Terumah is the Mishkan. So when Moshe Rabbeinu came down, he told Betzalel this is how you should do it. What did Betzalel say? Respectfully, you've taught me everything I know, Rabbi, but are you sure that's correct? Because my understanding would be that before you buy utensils, you first have a house to put them in.
Right.
And then what does Moshe Rabbeinu say? That's exactly correct. That's exactly what I heard on Mount Sinai. What's going on here? Betzalel was using the name of 42, and that's how he knew how to build the Mishkan. And why is that significant? Because God used the name of 42 to create the world. And that's why if you look at Rashi, okay, I'm not here in the Rashi when he discusses it in the Talmud, if I find the source, he says Sefer Yetzirah, which is what Kegon, the name of 42. So for those think that Rashi did not know Kabbalah, they are surely mistaken.
Abraham got the inspiration from
Sefer, but what is a Sefer Yetzirah? The goal of the Sefer Yetzirah is to show a person how God created the world. In what ways did God create the world? Also, when famously the Maharal made a golem, he used Sefer Yetzirah. When the Gemara discusses Eglat Tlita'ah, a 3-year-old calf that didn't need shechita. Why didn't it need shechita? Because it was made by Sefer HaYetzirah. So this is the practical Kabbalah, shall we say? Okay? But what do we know about what we just say? What did we just say? This Membet corresponds to which Sfirah? The Gvura.
So how can you create?
1 second. So God initially wanted to create the world Avdin, and then he mixed in Rachamim. So initially, how was the world created? With Sefer Yetzirah, specifically the name of Membet. And the Ramak in the Pardes Rimonim, through a lot of gematriot and switching of letters, Chilufei Otiyot, right? Switching of letters. There's different formulations. There's atbash. There's all kinds of different ways in the Kabbalah that letters can switch out. Yes, room for letter. He shows how the first 42 letters of Sefer Breshit, how it corresponds to the name of 42 that we see in the Siddur over there. So to show that not only is it just, but the fact that Hashem used the Bereshit, bara Elohim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz, up until a certain, the first 42 letters, through ways of doing chilufei otiyot, corresponds to this name that we just read. Ana Bekoach, correct. Aleph, Bet, right? Gimel, right? We don't say it. We don't pronounce it.
First 42 letters in Bereshit, using various akbach, whatever over there,
correspond to Ana, which is the name of 42, which God used to create the world with Din.
Was at a Din and of judgment. So Gevurah, the law and Gevurah line. What does that mean? That's a prime line, or
what do you mean prime line?
Yeah, I'm just wondering. We know it was created at a Gevurah.
It has to be. How do we know it has to be? Well, it doesn't. I shouldn't say it has to. How do we know Hashem created it of Din? Because step one, we discussed this a couple of weeks ago. What is step one? Allah b'machshavo. It rose up in his thoughts, in his will, birtzono, to create a world. And what was the first action that was done in creating a world?
After Allah b'machshavto?
In the beginning. The first action, forget about this. What is the first action?
The will of Hashem?
Allah b'ritzono, it arose in his will to create a world, right?
Heaven and earth.
And what's the first aspect that was done? Tzimtzum. Limitation. What is limitation? Gvura, din. Okay? And then afterwards, what did he do? He then made Rachamim. What's the Rachamim? The Kav. That's Yud Kevav K. So we see that's the earliest. When he created the physical world, it's the same thing. That was I shouldn't say creation of the spiritual world. That was the allowance of certain parts of the spiritual world to be seen by people, which is step one in the creation of a physical world, because the goal of the physical world is for us to be able to appreciate and see God, to have a relationship with God. So in order to have a relationship with God, the first thing he has to do is you have to turn off the lights. So infinity is nullified to a certain extent to allow us to have existence that's independent of him and that we can actually be in existence, really, okay? That's givurah. That's din, okay? But the world could not stand for that, so he mixed in rachamim. That's the kav. So just like we have, and that's what I said before. Remember we talked about, I think this was last week or the week before, from the lower parts, you can have a vision of what happened in the higher parts, because we're very limited to what we can say about the earlier parts, because those are very close to the boss, shall we say, and there's limit to what our mind can comprehend. But when we understand how it works in the physical world, we can have a reflection of how it was in the spiritual world and come to an understanding to the best of our ability of what happened in the spiritual world. Good? We good, Aviv?
Yeah.
And he's going to bring this up, by the way. So he says, the Shem of Mem, Yotzeh Shem Membet, the name of Shem Membet, and why is the practical Kabbalah so dangerous? There are three aspects of the Kabbalah, yes? There's the theoretical, there is the meditative, and then there is the practical. It's the exact opposite of the Nigle. In the Nigle, the lowest part is the maaseh, is the action, right? The next higher part is the dibur, and then the higher part in the world of asiyah, the world of action, is the machshava, the thoughts, the kavanah. Yes. In the Kabbalah, it's the opposite. The nigle, the machshava is the highest part, right? In the nistar, the machshava is the lowest part, right? Because the theoretical, that's involving thought. That everybody who has proper yirat shamayim can access. Okay? If you don't have yirat shamayim, you don't belong in that at all, right? Now, the next level is the meditative. Now, the meditative, we have limitations, okay? Nowadays, this is Rabbi Aryeh Kaplan said, we really need to only focus on the tefillah. Through the tefillah, which is meditation, yes, that is the area where we're allowed to do kavanot and things like that in the tefillah. But there's other kavanot that the rabbis have, like Rabbi, what's his name, Molcho, and other rabbis, Rabbi Abu Lafia, who was the teacher of the Rabbi Gikatilia. He had whole books on how to do kavanot that had nothing to do with the tefillah, kavanot, the names of Hashem. This is not something we nowadays, or most people nowadays, we didn't get to practical. This is theoretical, but this is the meditative, but there's limitation that because of our low level, we can do a part. Only part, Rabbi Aryeh Kaplan says, is what's involved in the tefillah, because we have a mitzvah to pray. We have a mitzvah to pray, and part of that mitzvah is to be mechaven, to have kavanah on the tefillah. So since we have a mitzvah, there's a sort of protection that a person through the tefillah can have the meditative aspect of it. Beyond the tefillah, that is not something we touch. And then the highest level of the Kabbalah is the practical, and that we don't touch at all.
Like you had rabbis in Israel, you read about, like, you're in front of whose ever house, like trying to give them a curse that they're going to die using practical Kabbalah.
And why is the practical Kabbalah, based on what we just learned now, why is the practical Kabbalah so dangerous?
You can do the opposite effect.
The Shem Membet is a feature of the world of the Givurah, of the Din. If a person is going to use the Shem of Membet, they better be able to stand up to Din. And almost none of us can stand up with Din. And that's why a person who involves themselves in the practical aspects of the Kabbalah, they're taking their life in their hands.
Yeah.
That's why.
So, quote unquote, playing with fire. Playing with Devorah.
But that's exactly right.
Playing with one of the 40 pieces of fire.
Exactly. You're playing with one of the 40 aspects of fire that's going to be discussed right now.
Very silly.
Okay, so we don't mess with that at all. Okay, that doesn't mean a person can't study Sefer Yetzirah. You can study it.
I didn't get very far, but of course that was 30 years ago, just getting started.
We just basically
Thanks for that.
we just basically discussing the first part, which is the Pliot Chochmah, which is Netivot Pliot Chochmah. The first Mishnah in the Sefer Yetzirah was what we discussed regarding the Chochmah and the 32 Netivot of the Chochmah. That's what's the first said he discusses in this book. So let's continue on. So the Gvura, what it says over here, the Kevan, he's going to say what I said. The Kevan, maybe I'm taking it from him because I did this already. The Kevan that Tzimtzum Oro Yitbarach, by way of the Tzimtzum of his light. Yes? Bigvura Nivreu Shamayim Va'aretz. With Din, the Shamayim and Aretz were created. Bereshit bara Elohim et Shamayim et Aretz. The name Elohim corresponds to the Givura. That's what he's saying here, right? Yotze Shem Membet, the name Shem Membet that has 42 letters. Mi Membet Otiyot Harishonot Shebat Torah, from the first 42 letters of the Torah. Mitchilat Bereshit, from the word Bereshit, ad ot bet shel tevat ubohu, until the word bet of the word ubohu, tohu vavohu, right? The vavohu, the bet over there, that's the 42nd letter. And those 40, Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim et haaretz, the haaretz hata tohu vavohu, that is 42 letters. Those 42 letters through chilufim correspond to the name of Membet that we just discussed. V'hu banui milamed bet shemot Elohim. And that's built from the 42 names of Elohim. Shibimaseh Breshit. If you look at all of Maseh Breshit that's written in the Torah, how many times does the word Elohim appear? 42. How can a person not appreciate that this is not
Not a coincidence.
this is and it's not just that, it's also, it fits based on what we're discussing here. It's something that you can't explain, and this is not something somebody could have done. This shows you Torah's min hashamayim. Nothing shows Torah's min hashamayim more than the study of the Kabbalah. Let's continue. Im yod ma'amarot, with 10 ma'amarot, right? So there are 32 names of Elohim and 10 ma'amarot. Altogether, 42. What is 10 ma'amarot? The Gemara tells us, in 10 sayings, the world was created, which corresponds to something else that we just read 2 weeks ago. Just like there were 10 ma'amarot the world was created with, there are 10 dibrot that the world exists with. If the Jewish people are not following the Torah, the world does not exist. And that's why it says in the Tanakh that, I forgot the exact pasuk, it says something, Chukot shamayim va'aretz lo samti, that if you see that the sun is rising every day, if you see the laws of nature are happening all the time, that means that the Jewish people are following the Torah. Because if, God forbid, all the Jewish people would cease to follow the Torah, that would be the end of the Shamayim and Aretz. And that's why, what does it say? Why was Har Sinai on Vav Sivan so awesome? Thunder, lightning. Why was that?
That's against nature.
It is nature. There are things that are supernatural. Ro'im et hakolot, you can't see voices without an oscilloscope. They didn't have an oscilloscope, and you're not really seeing the voice. You're seeing electrical representation, right? They saw voices, whatever that's called, synesthesia, whatever that means, I don't know.
They saw the wavelengths.
I'm not going to say that. Okay. Well,
every letter has a certain wavelength. The wavelength's actually shaped like the letter.
Okay, I need to understand that better. Okay, maybe. Okay, so fine. So synesthesia. So we see there were supernatural parts of it, but why was it given in such an awesome way? First of all, midat hadin. What does it say? If you accept the Torah, fine. If not, he lifted the mountain over their heads. Sham tiek vuratchem. There's going to be a burial place. That's not exactly a chesed. That's judgment. Okay, so we see all Har Sinai was about din. Right? What is it? Vayidaber Elohim et kol hadevarim ha'ele lemor. It doesn't say Yud Kei Vav Kei. It says Elohim. So it was given, the Aseret HaDibrot was given with Midat Hadin, the judgment, just like the world was initially created with Midat Hadin. What was I saying? But why was it all this noise? Vayerev vayivoker yom hashishi. Every other day it says Vayerev vayivoker yom echad, Vayerev vayivoker yom sheni. Why on Friday does it say Vayerev vayivoker yom hashishi with Hey Hayediyah?
That was the first day with Chesed.
No. Why, when we do the Shir Shel Yom, Hayom Yom Echad b'Shabbat Kodesh, but when we get to Friday, Hayom Yom Hashishi.
Special day because man was.
That's all nice on the Pshat and Drash, but what's the Sod?
There's a hay in there.
The Sod is Hashishi is the 6th of Sivan. The world was created for what purpose?
To give the Torah.
For the Torah to be given on Har Sinai on Vav Sivan. That's the whole purpose of the creation of the world. And if the Jewish people wouldn't have accepted the Torah on Har Sinai, that would have been the end of the world. And that's why the world itself was shaking, because the Shamayim and the Aretz and the mountains were nervous that what was going to happen, the Jewish people were not going to accept the Torah, and that would be the end of the world. Close call. So Vayerev vayivoker yom hashishi, all of Maaseh Breshit, including the creation of Adam Arishon and Chava, is for what purpose? The ultimate, to receive the Torah on Har Sinai and Vav Sivan. If that doesn't happen, that's the end of the world. And not just then, every single day. Ha'oseh b'chol yom tamid Maaseh Breshit, which means what? The world will cease to exist if the Jewish people stop following the Torah. That's why when the Goyim try to get us not to follow the Torah, they are sealing their death warrant. They don't realize it, but they're signing their death warrant. Because it's all Givurah. The Torah, what did we say before? God did the Tzimtzum, yes? And then in it, he put the Kav. The Kav represents Yud Kei Vav Kei. The Kav represents the Tiferet. The Kav represents the Torah, which means in the Din, there is the Torah. Okay, let's continue on. V'hu banui milamed bet shemot Elokim. It's built from the 32 names of Elokim that appears in Maaseh Breshit, and also Yod Ma'amarot, and the 10 sayings that God used to create the world. V'al Hashem HaKadosh Hazeh, and on this name, Yasad Hatana, Rabbi Nechunya ben Hakana, the author of what book did Rabbi Nechunya ben Hakana write?
He actually wrote the Anna B'Kol, didn't he?
Yes, and he also wrote another book. What book did he write?
What did he write?
Sefer HaBahir.
What's that?
Sefer HaBahir.
Here, that's right.
That was written by Rabbi Nechunya ben Hakana. Aryeh Kaplan has an explanation for that as well. Okay. Okay, so those two things, Ana B'Koach and Sefer HaBahir. He's also mentioned in the Pikei Avot, if I'm not mistaken, as well. Okay, Et Tfilato Ana B'Koach sheyesh ba mem betevot. There are 42 in Ana B'Koach, 42 names. Uberosh kol teva yesh ot me'Hashem. And in the beginning of each name, there's a letter, a letter of Hashem. V'hem zayin shemot, and there are 7 names, right? Because if you look at Ana B'Koach, 3 and 3, that makes the name, okay? The Kol Shem ben Vavot Tevot, and each name of Hashem is made out of 6 letters. Ayen Tikunei Zohar, Tikun Dalet Daf Yudchet. Look in the Tikunei Zohar, Daf Dalet Yudchet, where it discusses this, and maybe we should do this on the inside. Ubi Pardesh, and the Pardes Rimonim, Shar Kaf Aleph Perik Yud Gimel, where the Pardes discusses exactly what we're talking about here. So if a person wants to go in more detail, this book opens up the door to go into more detail. The Kavan Sheshem Membet Bigvura, because the name of 42 is in the Sphira of the Givura, who Koach HaEsh is the power, the force of fire. Hamachazira kol davar leshorsho. What is the function of fire? It returns everything back to its root. And that's why cremation is not allowed. Why not cremation? Because the body has to go back and be
The hole in the ground.
and be in the ground, return to afar, and through the process of decomposition underground, that removes the sin of Adam Harishon. When a person chooses to get cremated while the end product is the same, right? The problem is, but you're using fire that precludes a person from getting resurrected.
It's become so common.
It's very common.
There are rabbis advocating for it. I mean,
Not Orthodox rabbis.
No, these guys out
It
there.
is a
TikTokers who are
huge
hurting
mistake.
So many people.
Correct. And there was a charity called the Hebrew Food Burial Society that was again, I'm not sure it's an Orthodox charity either, but their job is to prevent people from getting cremated because most people do cremation because they can't have the money. It's expensive to have a burial, right? Especially for the guy and to have a wake, all that kind of stuff is ridiculous, right? But for us, it's still expensive, you know. It's anyway, but
and by the way, it is not permitted. I see people who talk about burial at ocean and just
no nonsense. No. Okay, you got to go. Okay, no problem.
I'll pick it up.
So once again, we see what's the issue. The body has to decompose in the afar, and that's what removes the et yoshel nachash. That's what removes the filth of the snake, and that's what allows a person to be resurrected. Person who's cremated, again, that doesn't mean if a person, God forbid, died on Kiddush Hashem was cremated. That's not what we're talking about. Okay, we're talking about a person who allowed themselves to be cremated.
What is Kiddush Hashem?
In the Holocaust, there were many Jews that were burned to death. They're burned, right? That's not the issue. It's not that God can't put it back together. Okay, that was their tikkun for the Chet Adam Harishon was what happened to them there. Okay, but a regular person, the tikkun for a regular person is to go into the ground and be decomposed in the ground. Okay. The fire returns everything back to its root. And that's why every time there's a rise in the worlds, specifically he's discussing now in the prayer, right? Like the korbanot and Kabbalat Shabbat, omrim tfilat ana bekoach. Again, this is according to the Sfaradim, don't do this. We say ana. I think the Moroccans actually do say ana bekoach on Friday night. Yes.
But sometimes we do.
Yeah, I don't think the Syrians do, but the Hasidim do for sure. And also every day we say ana bekoach in the korbanot
In the morning.
Right. Okay. Should we continue on?
Yeah. Well. Okay. So do we get to Betzalel? Why is Membet the koach of Gevura, but Betzalel used Membet to make the Mishkan?
Right.
The Mishkan is all Gevura. It's all.
Okay. I discussed this in my class yesterday. What a person makes an infraction in the temple. What's the punishment generally?
An infraction
makes a mistake in the temple.
Kigul of the korban. The korban needs to be burnt outside.
Okay, everything in the temple is severe. Okay. There are things a person does wrong, they get killed, they die. Right? Kohen Gadol goes in an inappropriate time, he dies. Not worthy, he dies.
Okay, but if I do the wrong korban, have the wrong covenant in a korban.
But if you look at the approach, as you're going to read the next couple of parashot, or in Sefer Vayikra, when we're reading about the punishments in the temple are very stiff. Why? Because it's a place of din. Now, through that place of din, we get rachamim. What's the rachamim in the temple?
The forgiveness or the acceptance of
the mizbeach, the shulchan. Right? The Mizbeach is the Rachamim. Why is it the Rachamim? Because that's how we reestablish the relationship with Hashem through the Korbanot. The Mizbeach HaZahav. That's also Rachamim, because the Kesher, it connects to the Shamayim. What do we see about both of those? What do we know about the Mizbeach HaZahav and the Mizbeach HaKetoret? And Mizbeach HaKetoret and Mizbeach HaDama. What do we know about both of them? Right? What do we know about both of them? And what do we know about the smoke of both of them?
They both go up straight.
What does that represent?
The kav.
That's it. That's the rachamim.
The tzinor.
The kav. We're gonna get to the tiferet shortly. We're gonna get to the tzinor. Okay. Okay. But right now it represents the kav.
So it makes sense because the mishkan is all din.
Mishkan is all din. The mizbeach and the mizbeach hazahav is rachamim.
Okay, so it's all din, but there is rachamim features.
Correct.
Okay.
And that's why the punishments are very, very severe.
So the world, the physical world, is still din, but there's aspects that are rachamim.
It says he created the world with din, but mixed in rachamim.
Same thing in the Mishkan. It's rachamim is mixed in there too.
And the Torah itself is rachamim. V'chol netivoteha shalom. Why netivoteha? Now you understand. Why that word? See if you...
Because that's the giving. That's the male. That's the masculine.
More? Why is that word v'chol netivoteha shalom?
All of its pathways.
When you think about netiv, what do you think about? Chokhmah. The Torah is chokhmah. Kol netivoteha. How many netivot are there?
32 of wisdom. Okay.
32. Right? What did we say before?
32 paths of wisdom.
Lamed bet netivot chokhmah.
But the Torah also has din and rachamim mixed in.
No, the Torah is really rachamim. It's how to survive with the din. By following the Torah, one can live with the din. The problem is we have Yetzer Hara. That's the problem, and that was our own cause. So we brought him inside. Okay, but the Torah is the rachamim. V'chol netivoteha shalom. All of her paths, all of her netivot are peaceful, are shalom. How do you tell the difference between someone's a Talmid Chacham and someone who's not? Is it a test? You give him a test and he can pass the test. It's like an SAT or an MCAT or an LSAT. Is that how you tell a person is a Talmid Chacham? There's two ways to tell a Talmid Chacham. Worse on behavior. Midot. Doesn't have midot, he's not a Talmid Chacham. He's a computer with knowledge. But that's not a Talmid Chacham. Okay? The other way is Talmidei Chachamim marbim shalom ba'olam. What does that mean? The goal, the Talmid Chacham should be bringing shalom to the world. First of all, by teaching Torah to people so they cannot make avonot, and that makes them shalom between them and Hashem. If you see Talmid Chacham that creates machloket and disputation, this is not a Talmid Chacham.
That's a kind of a midah, though.
Okay, it's there are 48 midot, it says, for kinyan HaTorah. That's brought in Pirkei Avot, 48. Almost all of them are related to behaviors and working on oneself, not necessarily intellectual prowess, although there is some intellectual prowess that's needed for success in the Torah. Okay? But that Hashem can always give a person if he doesn't have it. Midot Hashem's not giving you. You have to work on that. Okay? So there's 48 qualities in order to have a kinyan of the Torah. But on top of that, the way you see a Talmid Chacham is not based on what they know. It's
how they use it.
Is their action. Their action in the world. What is the response? What is the action in the world? What is that like? Shir Morah Rabach Kimorah Shamayim. That one's awe, fear, yirah of the Talmid Chacham should be comparable to the awe of Hashem. Why? Because the way they reveal themselves in the world is similar. Hashem is revealed to the world through his actions. The Talmid Chacham is a Talmid Chacham only through their actions, what they teach and how they act.
So an emissary of Hashem.
That's correct. We should all be Talmid Chachamim. That's the goal. The goal is for every Jew to be a Talmid Chacham. It shouldn't just be a select few. It's a little lower. Okay, let's continue on. So we talked about the Gvura. Now we had Shiv'im Tzinorot, 70 pipes. Lemidat HaTiferet. This is the midah of the Tiferet. Yesh Shisha Ketzavot. There are 6 directions. Im Ateret HaYesod, with the crown of the Yesod. Shehi Shorish Lemidat HaMalchut, which is the root for the Malchut. Hare Sheva, 7. Ubechol Echad Eses Sfirot, and each one has 10 Sfirot. Hare Shivim Tzinorot, 10 times 7. Ukeneged Zeh Yesh Shivim Panim LaTorah. And vis-a-vis this, now there are 70 panim la Torah, 70 faces to the Torah. Shibichtav, shehi betiferet, because the Torah shibichtav is the tiferet.
What we just said towards Rachamim.
Tiferet is rachamim. Chesed,
Chesed.
givura, rachamim.
Tiferet unifies the Gevurah and the Chesed, because Tiferet is in the middle.
Tiferet is the mixture of the chesed and the givura in proper amounts, which becomes beautiful. But rachamim is the tiferet. Still there?
Okay. Rachamim is the Tiferet, but I'm so confused. Rachamim should be the Chesed.
It's also chesed, but the tiferet
Well,
is the
spirit mixed in with each
is
other.
the perfected rachamim.
Okay. The tam.
The beauty. That's why the tiferet represents all the six, right? When you want to just talk about one sfirah that represents all the ze'er anpin, which sfirah do you talk about? The tiferet or the yesod. Okay, because the yesod is the focus for everything to come to the malchut, right? But as far as the tiferet is concerned, that represents the all six.
Before they come down, before they're connected to the malchut. And the yesod is also all six, but connected to the
Correct.
malchut.
Correct. Okay, that's what we're discussing in the book over here in the Shaare Sheni, when it's talking about kala and kol. Kol is yesod. Kala is malchut.
Feminine. Okay.
Okay, let's continue. So the Torah shbichtav is betiferet. Ve'atiferet midat Yaakov Avinu, and the tiferet is the midah of Yaakov Avinu. Mashpia l'shiv'im nefesh sheyardu leMitzrayim. Incredible. How could a person study the shot without understanding the sod? Good.
Yep.
Let's continue. Keneged shivi minei hashpaot b'kedusha, vis-a-vis the 7 hashpaot influences that are in holiness that we've just discussed. Yesh kenegdam shivim umot. There are 70 nations. Shemekablim mahem et hashefa, and those 70 nations receive their shefa from the 70 of the Jewish people. All of the shefa of the world ideally comes through the Jewish people and to the nations. That's when we are doing our proper behavior and the temple is in its proper place. And that's why the Talmud says, if the Goyim would have recognized what the effect of the world of destroying the temple is, they would not have destroyed the temple. Because the way it works is all the shefa comes to the world through the Beit HaMikdash, through the Jewish people to the rest of the world. Once the Beit HaMikdash is destroyed, what happens? The shefa goes to wherever the Jewish people are sent. And then everybody's got to pick up the pieces. It's not organized. It's not in a stream to one place.
So it's less effective, the shefa.
It's less.
Exists,
it's less.
But it's spread out.
That's
the Jewish
correct.
people spread out.
That's
Like
correct. That's correct. Okay. Continue. K'mosh katav Rabbeinu lekaman, like our rabbi wrote in parak, the 5th parak of this book. Because why would it be in the 5th parak of this book? Because the 5th parak of this book is going to discuss the sfira of Tiferet and the name Yud Kei Vav Kei, which corresponds to the sfira of Tiferet. Shekol hatzinorot shayu ba'im liYisrael, all the pipes that were coming to the Jewish people, mushpaot mishem havaya, are receiving their sustenance from the name Yud Kei Vav Kei. Umisham nishpachot el artzot shirei ha'omot, and from there they spread out and are spilled to the rest of the world. V'lachen tzaviv hamerkava elyona, and that's why around the divine chariot, Misudarim saviv saviv shiv'im sarim, there are 70 ministers that surround the divine chariot. Shehem mekabelim u'mamshichim hashefa l'chol artzotehem. And what do? Those 70, they receive this through the Yisrael, they receive their sustenance, and they spread it to the rest of the world. Ayen Sham Barucha. So look over there in detail in Parakeh in this book. The Katav Harakanti. Oh God, the Rakanti is amazing. Parashat Noach. What did he write? You know who the Rakanti is?
Rekanati.
Okay.
Yeah, the wine.
Rakanati, that's how he pronounces his name? Maybe, right. Maybe that's how.
sounds like
The Ashkenazim call him the Rakanti. Maybe his name is the Rakanati. What would be in Italian? How would you say that in Italian? Rakanati or Rakanti? You might be right. It might be Rakanati. Okay, then I stand corrected. The Rakanati, okay, should be the Parashat Noach. Shibidor HaPalaga, in the generation of the dispersion, Natan lechol umah chelka min haaretz. Every nation was given its portion from the land. V'sar echad lemala aleha, and one minister above all of them. Uben kulam shivim, and amongst all of them 70. Vehem shivim anathim min ilan ha'elyon, and these are 70 branches from the tree, ilan ha'elyon. Shivim sarim hasovvim et kisei hakavod, the 70 ministers that surround the kisei hakavod. When you hear kisei hakavod, what is that referring to? Bina.
Okay, because Bina is also sitting at the top of the Gimel Rashim, transferring.
The Bina is is the source for all the 70, right? The Tzinorot received their shefa from the Bina.
So it goes Bina, Kisei Kavod.
No, Bina is the Kisei Kavod. What does it say about Teshuvah? When a person's a Baal Teshuvah, where does this Teshuvah reach?
Right to
the
leg.
Kisei HaKavod.
The leg of the Kisei.
That's what it says. It doesn't say ad the leg. I didn't say that. I don't think it says that. It says the Teshuvah reaches ad Kisei HaKavod. And there's a discussion in the Gemara. This is going to come back to what we said in the beginning. When it says ad, is it ad? Is ad bichlal?
Does it include the Kisei?
Does it
until the Kisei?
How many sha'arim? How many gates are there in the Bina?
50.
50. So when it says it goes to the Kisei HaKavod, what does that mean?
Up to 49 or including 50? Including
50. Ad bichlal includes 50. And that's why Rabbi Akiva had all 50. That's right.
Okay, Balshiva goes ad Kisei Kavod, including
ad bichlal. Ad, and ad is included, which means that final one, because ad can mean up until here, but no more. But doesn't include, I'm not about leg. Where we see leg.
There's 4 legs of the Kisei Kavod. One of them is the face of Yaakov, and the other 3 correspond to something else, or it's not.
There are three animals. So if you're talking about the Merkava, there are 4 animals.
So what is face?
What's the animals? Aleph.
Bear.
Aryeh.
So lion, eagle.
Nesher is a griffin vulture, not an eagle. Okay. And the kaf, what's the kaf?
The kaf, the hand?
So the kaf is really the kruv. If you look in Yechezkel, in chapter 1 versus chapter 10, it's a kruv. In chapter 1, it's a shor. There's another word for shor, I forget the word, it starts with a kaf. And when Yechezkel, what was the problem with having a shor?
It's related to a calf, and that was
yeah,
but a calf is a baby shore, so it's still related.
So therefore, it switched to a kruv. So Yechezkel prayed, and it didn't switch, I shouldn't say, but it revealed itself as a kruv rather than as a shore. So those, and then what's the fourth letter? The fourth one is Adam. Which Adam? Yaakov. That's why it says, Achen yesh Adonai b'makom hazeh ve'anochi lo yadati. Simple meaning is what? There is Hashem is in this place, but I didn't know. Achen, Aleph, Kaf, Nun. Aryeh, Kruv, Nesher. Anochi lo yadati. I didn't know that the Yud, the Adam, is Yaakov.
Yaakov didn't know that he was actually part of the
He didn't know that his face is the Adam in the Merkava.
What do you think it was?
He didn't know. He didn't have no experience. Adam. It could be Adam Arishon. I don't know. He didn't know. But when he went, and that's why Yosef, what does it say about Yosef? He was about to sin with Bathsheba. He went to Asot Melachto, and many of the rabbis say, where's Asot Melachto? He went to sin. Asot is do with Potiphar's wife.
And then he saw the image of his.
He saw Diukno Shel Aviv.
His beard.
His image. Diukno is an image, right? Also an image, the face of his father. And he recognized that if I make this sin, then I'm not going to be party to the Merkava. Because a Jew who does that with
Yosef isn't part of the Merkava.
he's not, but he can't, well, he's not, but he receives from the Merkava. And a Jew that sins in that way and doesn't make teshuvah is disconnected. Why is he disconnected? Because the Brit represents the signature, the seal of the Jew. And it can only be placed, the emet can only be in a place that is appropriate. When a person takes the emet and puts into a place that's not appropriate, like any of the arayot, including a Gentile, he's basically putting the seal of Hashem on the body of a Jew in a place that is inappropriate. And what does Yaakov Avinu represent? Emet. So a person who represents Emet cannot sin like that. And if they sin like that, they got to make big teshuvah. Good.
Yep.
Let's see. Is this a good place to stop? We have time?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's continue on. Okay. Okay, we'll go further in the Shaare. All we were just doing now, that was not the Shaare Orah. That was the explanation of the Shaare that's brought in this version, in this book, which is Rabbi Epstein. Okay, now we're going to go back to the Shaare Orah. Okay, the Al Tomar, do not say Ki kol elu haniskarim ba'in tamid ke'echad, that they all come as one. Ki biyot Hashem amiluo nikra yud kevav ke'echad. Because the name of Hashem, when it is in full, it's called Yud Kevav Ke'echad. Kol elu hama'alot haniskarot nimshachot bechefetz echad v'ratzon echad. All of these levels that we mentioned are basically nimshach, are coming to us with desire of echad and ratzon echad. The desire is one, and the ratzon is echad. Echad, of course, was the gematria of echad. 13. Echad twice, 26. Why is that echad twice?
What do you mean echad twice?
Echad is 13, right?
Right.
And 2 times echad is 26.
Okay.
What does that mean? Why should that be?
Echad times 2 is 26. Okay. 26 Yud Kevav, okay.
Lo tov heyot ha'adam levado eselo ezer kenegdo. Each one is echad. When 2 people are together, each one is a chatzi of a adam. When a man and a woman come together properly, they make adam. Now each one is echad together, 26.
Esh and Isha.
That's right.
Ish and Isha. Hey, extra.
Right, echad is right. And what else do we also know? There's another word that has a similar gematria situation. Ahava. What's the gematria of ahava?
13?
13. Aleph, hey, 6. Bet, 8. Hey, 5.
10, 1, and 3.
13.
10, 1, and 2.
Ahava together is 26. Ish ve'isha zachu, shechina benehem. A man and woman who are successful in building a bayit ne'eman be'Yisrael and have shalom, shechina benehem. Lo zachu, esh ochelatam. Why is esh ochelatam? Fire eats them up.
Good word. Dan.
Okay, now look
Lacking.
at you have ish and you have isha. The yud of the ish is between the aleph and the shin. The yud is one of the letters of Hashem's name, so it comes between the aleph and the shin, and that's why generally men are less passionate, less emotional. Women, aleph and shin are together. The hey is at the end. The name of Hashem, the letter of the hey is at the end of Hashem's name, is the end of the letter. but the aleph and the shin are together, which means it's
Esh,
very
fire, fight, or
easy
emotion.
to happen is the hey to separate, and there's esh.
Which is emotion and fire. And
Correct. And that's why ish is called a gever. What's a gever? From the word gibor. What is a gibor? Not like we see in Roman civilization and Greek with Sparta, and what happens in this country, what they think a gibor is. What is a gibor? Ezu a gibor hakovesh et yitzro. And whose responsibility, since there's no ladies here, whose responsibility, this is all a work in progress, whose responsibility is it to be the one to give in first
give in an argument?
in a discussion between a husband and wife?
The man. Mefater?
The man.
Is gonna
Why?
mefatir on me
Because
the
he should be able to do it better. Why? Because the yod is between the aleph and the shin. He should be less likely to get to esh than she is. When the man is not, first of all, of course, she has to respect him, all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of other things. I'm not saying women have no participation in this. They have a lot of participation in it. But at the end of the day, when they allow the yud and the hey, the yud from the ish and the hey from the isha to leave, there is only esh.
So the man, since the yud is in the middle, has the more power to keep the yud in the middle.
Say that again?
Ish has the yud in the middle, so he has more responsibility, more power, more talent to keep Hashem.
He should be able to
keep the relationship
maintain his composure. He should be less likely to go to esh than her. And that's what happens when you bring up a society of men who behave like ladies. We have a society of look at these guys growing. They don't know what it is to be a man. They've been emasculated. They've lost their masculinity. It's about compromising. It's about giving in. It's not about being the one, right?
Testosterone therapy that's from the outside, where
the whole society. The whole society is breaking down the borders between men and women. Guys will be guys will be girls, and girls will be guys, right?
Commercial, and you have these brainwashing schemes, change your gender.
But really, it's because the men don't exert themselves as men, and the women do not allow themselves to have their husbands be a man. And what a woman hopefully realizes over the course of time is she's not interested in marrying a woman. Women, they're great friends, but they don't want to be in that type. But there's something a man brings to a relationship, just like for a woman. The guy's going to get together and watch the Super Bowl today, and maybe some ladies will too. I don't want to be sexist, but at the end of the day, there are things that the opposite sex brings to a relationship, not just relations. It brings a certain different quality. The man has to learn softness from his wife. He has to learn passion from his wife. The woman has to learn sometimes not to be so passionate and sometimes to be a little bit tougher. That is the ultimate goal when they get together. Ish ve'isha zachu shechina benehem lo tov heyot adam levado. It's not good for man to be alone.
They're missing a quality.
That is correct. And they basically balance each other, and together they become Adam. They become a world. Even though it says Adam is Olam Katan, but to be a complete world, okay, we know from the Kabbalah, in order to be a complete world, you have to have a Zachar and Nekeva. You have to have a Or, and you have to have a Keli. If there's only Or, there's no Olam. If there's no Keli, there's no Olam. In order to have Olam, you have to have Or and Keli together. I'm not going to say that. That's more Zoroastrian than anything else. That's more Avodah Zarah.
But the way the diagram is,
I don't care about the diagram.
One complements the other.
They're equal. They're separate but equal. That's the difference. They're not exactly equal. Each shape is a mirror image of each other.
Right.
That's not really correct.
Well,
okay. Let's go through it. The man is made up of 6. Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferet, Netzach, Chod, Yesod.
Okay.
The woman is Malchut. Right. So it's not exactly equal. the Partsufim, Ze'er Anpin, which represents Kucha Brichu, which is the masculine, is made up of 6 Sfirot. The Nukva, which is the Malchut, is made of 1.
So Malchut doesn't include all the other 6?
No. In each Sfirah, there's a Malchut aspect of it, because each Sfirah is 10, and then forever and ever like that. So there's a Malchut of each one of the Sfirot. That's where there's a connection. But even if there's a Malchut for each Sfirot, there's also the other 6. So if I go to the next Sfirah, if I say, look, let's say in the Chesed, there's a Malchut in Chesed, right? So therefore, there's a feminine aspect in the Chesed. But in the Chesed, there are still 6. There's Chesed, Gvurat, Tiferet, Netzach, Hod, and Yesod.
Okay, one does not equal 6. They're not equal. Okay.
I'm going to say separate but equal. Okay, they're equal in their function is different, but both absolutely necessary. And the only way they work, each one without the other, is useless. The only way they work is together. Otherwise, there's no receive and there's no giving. And back.
So you have an empty vessel, or you have light with no vessel.
Correct. And the earliest olamot are only Or. The Keli is not until I think it's the Akudim. That's the first beginning of the Keli with the Orot HaPed. That's the beginning of the Keli. Okay? But before that, there's only Orot. But they're really not called olamot. Because why? They don't have a Keli. I don't want to, maybe I'm being a little simplifying it. It's not a Keli, but if one thinks about it, the Tzimtzum is a Keli. It's not. It's not really, but it has the function of a Keli, even though it's not a Keli. So the Tzimtzum would be the feminine of the Ein Sof. If we can say that.
The arts is the feminine of the Shemayim?
The what?
Arts is the feminine of Shemayim?
The arts?
The arts.
Aretz is what? Say that again?
Feminine.
Of the Shamayim. I would say the Adama is the feminine of the Shamayim.
Okay. Because
in the first pasuk when it says Bereshit bara Elohim et Shamayim et Haaretz, right? The Shamayim is the spiritual world. The Aretz is the physical world. And then the Torah goes and describes the Aretz hayta tohu vavohu, because the Torah is not there to tell you directly about the spiritual world. It's there to tell you about the physical world. But through studying the physical world, one can learn about the spiritual world indirectly. Okay, let's do a little further. We're again on page Kof Samach Zayin. It says over here, I'm sorry, right, okay, let's go back to the top. V'nimtza Shem Adonay mitbarech mikulam. And we see the name Aleph Daled Nun Yud, which corresponds to the Malchut, receives bracha from all of them. Yes? Good. She receives sustenance. She receives from all of the ones above. Kvi Shefa Milui Shem Aleph Daled Nun Yud. And according to the Shefa, the abundance of Milui Shem Aleph Daled Nun Yud, Mitesha Sfirot She'alav, from the filling of the Aleph Daled Nun Yud, from the 9 Sfirot above her, Kach Yeh Kol Ha'olam Mitbarech Mishem Adonai. And that's how the entire world receives bracha from Aleph Daled Nun Yud, because Aleph Daled Nun Yud receives the Shefa from the 9 above, and then Aleph Daled Nun Yud reflects and gives that Shefa back to the world, to the lower worlds. And that's why the Malchut of the higher world is the Keter of the lower world.
The Malchut of the higher world is the Keter.
That's why the top Sfirah is called Keter Malchut.
Okay, so it's like a reflection of the top.
Correct. So Malchut receives and then gives. It's the Malchut of the 9 that receives from the 9 Sfirot in the above world, and then that Malchut becomes the Keter and gives to the rest of the Sfirot of the next lower world.
The The world that goes from Malchut to Keter.
And that's why all of the worlds are connected. If a person, chas v'shalom, makes a disconnection between the worlds, it's called mafrid aluf. Separates the keter.
What's the head?
The aluf is the keter. Because what is he doing? He's separating the keter from anything below it, whether it's the top or whether it's the bottom. Okay, let's continue on. The az kol yitzurim liminehem meleim kol tuv, and then all of the creations, yitzurim, why yitzurim?
Not Nivraim.
Not Nivraim. Okay, it could be Nivraim, but here's the issue. All the creations of the world, right, are liminehem. I think he's quoting the pasuk from. He's quoting from Breshit. He's playing with the words in Breshit. Meleim kol tuv are filled with all kinds of goodness. The kol shefa min haberecha. And all of the shefa from the berecha. What is the berecha?
It's the chokhmah.
It's the source
Of Bina.
of the bracha. If I'm not
This is
mistaken, the
Eden?
brecha is the bina. It's
That's
Eden.
right, okay.
Yes. V'naha yotze me'eden la'ashkot et hagan. Good. Relief amim hayu chasadim mima. And again, because the chokhmah and the bina are always connected, they're never disconnected. It's really the same thing. They're different, right? They're different from each other, but they're connected always. The yud and the k are always connected to each other. Ki yad al kes ya. Yud and K are always connected. The question is the Vav connected to the Hey? And is the Hey connected to the Vav? And it's the job of the Jewish people in the world to do what? To connect the Hey to the Vav. And it's Hashem's job to connect the Vav to the Hey. Ki yad al kesya milchama ladonai ba'amalek midor dor. Amalek caused the separation, chas v'shalom, between the Yud K and the Vav. And the kiseh, why kiseh? Bina is not complete as long as Amalek is around. When Amalek is destroyed, the Bina is complete. When the Bina is complete, that means the Jewish people have all done Teshuvah.
And the chair.
If all the kiseh is complete, and that represents Chaim forever. That's Olam Haba. Olam Haba is the Bina. And which Olam Haba? Not the Olam HaNeshamot, the Olam HaTechiyah, the world of the resurrection.
That's this world, Olam Haba.
That's the Olam Haba for this world and the world of the souls.
You said not Olam HaNeshamot.
The world of the souls also has an Olam Haba. When a person dies and the Neshama goes to Olam Haba, right?
Olam Haba for the Neshamot.
That Olam is, when they're in that world, it's called Olam Hazeh. For them, it's Olam Hazeh. So therefore, for them, what is the Olam Haba?
Olam Tichat Metim.
Exactly. For us, there's a step that has to have first. What's that step? We have to die. Okay? We don't necessarily have to go to Olam Haba, though, to the Olam HaNeshamot. Because when the Tichat HaMetim happens, based on Daniel, okay, what happens? Every Jew who's alive. There are going to be Jews alive when the resurrection happens, yes? What happened? People who didn't die yet. People who were alive during that time. What happens to those Jews during the resurrection? What happens to those Jews during the resurrection? They die and then get resurrected immediately.
Oh, so you have to die to take that step.
You have to die to take that step. You cannot go to the world of the Techiyah with the body that we have now. So the body dies. But immediately then what happens? It's resurrected because it's the time of Techiyah.
So somebody dies during the resurrection. They
die and then immediately wake up with a new body. There's no distance, but there's no time between death.
They don't go to Olam Haba.
That's what I'm saying. They don't go to Olam HaNeshamot. Let's be careful. They go right away to Olam HaTechiyah. But first, before they get to Olam HaTechiyah, they have to experience death. And when they experience death, then they're given immediately a body that's...
That's
correct.
You die during the day.
A person, don't say you. If a person dies when the... right? If a person dies at the time of the Techiyah, if a person's alive during the time of the Techiyah, they die and then immediately resurrect.
He's 120. let's say this person's 120. He dies during the day that the Mashiach comes.
Not Mashiach. Okay, Mashiach and Tchiat HaMetim are a little separate from each other. First is the Mashiach. The goal of the Mashiach is to prepare the entire world for the
Okay, Mashiach
coming
ben
of the
Yosef, Mashiach ben
Tchiat.
David, the war.
No. Mashiach ben David we're talking about.
Mashiach ben Yosef is first.
Okay.
So all the Mashiach, all the wars.
When
so everything
Mashiach
is
ben
done.
David comes, there are certain things he has to do in order to be the Mashiach. He has to gather the Jewish people to the land of Israel, all of them. He has
Build
to
the temple.
fight the wars
Fight
of
the wars.
God.
All that's over.
Okay, and then he has to build a temple, and we don't know the order how it works. The temple comes first. We don't know the order here. We don't know, but those three things he has to do. If he doesn't do any one of those three things, he's not the Mashiach. Now he builds the temple. What do? Tchiat HaMetim right away? No, absolutely not. What happens when he builds the temple? We bring korbanot. That's what's discussed in Yechezkel. Yechezkel mentions that the Mashiach, or there it's called the Nasi, is going to bring a korban. And what korban is he going to bring? Korban chatat. Or to the Christians who think what they think. They don't read the Psukim properly. Why would the Mashiach, who's perfect according to their idea, have to bring korban chatat? Why are the korbanot at all? He was the korban. Wish them best of luck understanding the last 6 chapters of Yechezkel. So, and we bring, and we reestablish the sacrificial system. We have korbanot, korban Pesach. We're able to fulfill all the mitzvot of the Torah, including the ones we can't fulfill today, like Yovel, like Shemitah from the Torah. We fulfill these mitzvot for a period of time.
So you're saying you need to wait 49 years? Or
I'm not saying wait 49 years. I
You
think
need
it's
to go
I think it's 3 generations. That's my understanding, because there are 3 generations. It says Mashiach, son and grandson. So we have to have 3 generations, okay? And then after that, when all the Gentiles realize that the truth is with us, and they all b'safa achat are calling Yud Kei Vav Kei, not Allah, not Jesus, right? With safa achat, all the Gentiles are calling out to Yud Kei Vav Kei, and they will serve us, which means they will do the melacha that's necessary for our physical sustenance, so that we can then improve our spirituality and then help them with their spiritual sustenance. That is the raising of the spirituality of the entire world. Until when? Until the resurrection. At the resurrection, everybody wakes up. All the Jewish people who are righteous wake up, okay? And the ones who are alive at that time die and then wake up right away. And there's Tchiat HaMetim.
I guess my question was, either way, on that day, whether you die of natural causes, a person dies of natural causes, or a person dies because they need to experience Tchiat HaMetim, they're not going.
No one is going to die. Okay. Everyone who's going to die at that time is going to die of natural causes, regardless how old they are, because it's still the world. At the resurrection, that's right. So then they die and they wake up.
So what's that? Once you reach that point of the resurrection, no one's dying of natural causes.
There's no death.
But you need to die to reach Olam Haba.
No, again, before the resurrection, at the time of the resurrection, whoever is alive dies and wakes up right away for the resurrection with everybody, and they skip Olam HaNeshamot. That's my understanding. Otherwise, it makes no sense.
So there is no natural death at that time.
After the Tchiat HaMetim?
Before, like right before.
You're still not catching it.
I'm saying
as long as it's Olam Hazeh, there's natural death.
But I'm saying on that day, you have to die to it.
Not you.
On that day, a person has to die to get to Olam.
They'll have a heart attack. They'll have a problem. Something will happen. They'll die. They'll have a pulmonary embolism. They'll have a ruptured aneurysm. Well, they're going to die naturally. I don't think they're going to die. I mean, it's all natural. As long as we're in Olam Hazeh, it's all natural. I haven't seen. Maybe I'm wrong about that. I don't know. But I don't see any reason to explain that it would not be a natural death, whatever how old the person is, whether they're 2 months old or 90 years old. They die naturally on that day. And then as the resurrection happens, everybody wakes up, including the people who've been dead for thousands of years.
Right, they're going right to Tchiat HaMetim, skipping Olam Haba.
That's those people who are alive at that time are skipping that step. Okay.
So, yeah.
So it reminds me, I'm not sure you can make a drasha about this, reminds me of the people who, in the last year of the desert, didn't die. They skipped that step. They continued, went into the land of Israel, even though they were part of the
Even though
decree,
they buried,
even though they were
dug
part
their-
of the Meraglim. Technically, they were part of that decree, but it was the last year, right? They dug their grave, they slept in it up until Tu B'Av. And on Tu B'Av, they realized that the decree was lifted, and they survived, even though for 39 years or 38 years, they were preparing to die at any time.
Tu B'Av was a happy day.
Yeah, Tu B'Av is a happy day for everyone. All of Klal Yisrael says. Lo hayu yamim tovim leYisrael Tu B'Av motzei Yom Kippurim.
They got out of their grave. They're happy. We get to skip Tachlis.
Okay, but it says yeah, right, exactly. Okay, let's continue. Let's from here. Let's get back into the Sod. Okay. Belif amim hayu hachasadim mima'atim tzinorot hadin. And now remember, you have the brecha on top, right? That's giving out all the shefa. The shefa is going through the 6, right? And then it comes to the malchut, where the malchut is receiving. How does the malchut receive the shefa? Now that's going to depend. What does it depend on? Belif amim hayu chasadim mima'atim tzinorot hadin. Sometimes what happens is the chasadim minimize the pipes of the din when there's more chesed, olam chesed yibaneh, right? Umarbim tzinorot chesed rachamim, and that increases the pipes or the shefa of chesed and rachamim. Ufamim bnei adam chotim, but sometimes people sin. Mima'atin tzinorot chesed rachamim, they shrink the tzinorot of the chesed and of the rachamim. Umarbim tzinorot adin, and then what happens is there's more din that's influencing the malchut.
Rich said they're decreasing the tzinor of the din, more chesed.
Okay, if people are behaving properly, they're
It gets diminished.
increasing, they're opening up the pipes or increasing the pipes of the chesed, and then the din is
Decreasing.
smaller. If there are sins, it's the opposite. The tzinorot of the din are opening and the chesed is closing. And then what happens? The malchut is influenced by the din. This is what I said yesterday. What did I say yesterday? I said yesterday that the rabbis tell us in the Talmud that the reason why the second Beit HaMikdash was destroyed is because everybody was going according to the din. So when they had a disputation with their fellow Jew, they went according to the din. And for that, the Beit HaMikdash was destroyed. So the Gemara frets the kasha. What are they supposed to do? They're not going to go by din Torah. What are they supposed to go by? Din of the Goyim? What din are they supposed to go? Meaning, what's the conclusion? They did not behave lifnim mishurat hadin, because they behaved with each other according to the din. That's what the Ben Ish Chai says. This is how he explains the Gemara. He says, because they behaved and expected din with their fellow Jews, which they're entitled to,
there's a level above.
therefore in Shamayim, they get what they mete out. Since they acted with din with their fellow Jews, therefore they get din from Shamayim, and the Beit HaMikdash was destroyed. If they would have behaved with lifnim mishurat hadin with their Jews, then Hashem, even though the temple should have been destroyed, would have behaved lifnim mishurat hadin, which means we see over here, what did we just discuss? We discussed that the way the spiritual world works, okay, is based on the deeds in the physical world. If the physical is correct, so if the physical world is behaving in a proper way, then the tzinorot of chesed are open, and then the experience of the malchut and the experience of the world is one of chesed and rachamim. If the people are sinning, then what happens? The tzinorot of the din are wider, the tzinorot of the chesed and rachamim are narrower, and the malchut receives din, and then the world experiences din. But there's one key factor here. All of what we discuss right now is coming direct from the Ein Sof. Now we're going to get to it. Still, okay, it comes from the Ein Sof, but we'll see how this works a little differently. Let's continue, okay? This you can explain it here. Is it on the bottom? Okay, let's look on the bottom here. Ayin Resh Hey. See, it's interesting. In the numbers, it should have been Resh Ayin Hey, but he changed it. Ayin Resh Hey.
Because the bigger number should come first.
No, because the bigger number should come first. That's right. Why do you change it? Ra'ah. No, that's not what you do. We have no ra'ah over here. There's only good. Okay, so Ayin Resh Hey. Bechat'eh b'nei adam, in the sins of people. מתקלקל החיבור והצירוף ומתמעט האור בעולמות. When people sin, what happens? The chibur, the connections are mitkalkel, are disrupted, okay? And the tziruf, mitma'et ha'or, and then there's a decreased light of shefa in the worlds. Umi'ut ha'or mevi'et ha'kilkul, and the reduction of shefa, tov, brings the kilkul, because that allows the din to be more. Okay, let's continue on. והחיסרון שהרע אינו אלא מהעדר שפעו וביטולו אם מעט אם הרבה. So what we just learned over here is the ra, based on what we just discussed here, has to do with less chesed and less rachamim. When there's less chesed and less rachamim, that means that there's more din. Din is gover. Okay? But this is all shefa of tov, which means there is less tov. Is there's less tov, then there's more lo tov.
So it's really not evil. It's not bad. It's just
It's
less
not
bad.
evil. That's the key. This is not evil. It's something comes from another place.
It's just very
Because
low
this is in the
levels of chesed.
this
and
is
high
in the
levels of din.
penimi. This is the penimiyut. Right? This is the essence, the inside the kav, which is yud vavke. It's only tov. But less tov one experiences, that's din. More tov is chesed and rachamim. Okay, let's continue. K'moshe bi'er Rabbeinu b'Shaare, like our rabbi is going to explain in the fifth gate. Kvar hadonucha kol ki kol hashefa hatov haba l'Shem aleph daled nun yud. That everything that comes to aleph daled nun yud is tov. Everything comes tov. The question is it more tov or less tov? Huba mishem havaya, comes from the name havaya, which is the tiferet. Vaz mitmaleh Shem aleph daled nun yud, and then the malchut is filled. Mikol tov ubracha v'shefa v'chaim v'ratzon, with all goodness and bracha and shefa and chaim and ratzon. All these are the good things. Yes. Aval im b'nei ha'olam ovrim averot gedolot. But if the people of the world sin with big sins, mitameim atzman betumot chamurot, they make themselves tameh with very significant impurities. Az betumatam gormim shiafsiku kol tzinorot hashefa b'mishem havaya. Through their tumah, they cause there to be a complete stoppage of all of the tzinorot hashefa that comes from the name Yud Kei Vav Kei. L'shem aleph daled nun yud. Ve'az nisheret hamidani hanikret aleph daled nun yud, and then the sfirah of the malchut is left without shefa from above. Yevesha, dry, v'chasera, empty, min harachamim. Ki hare nistalek shem havaya legamre. That the name havaya completely removed itself, and now the malchut is left empty. Ubiota levad nifredet midat harachamim, and when the malchut is separated from the midat harachamim, and right, he mekabelet mitzad smol. She receives it from the chitzon.
This is the gevura. This is the left side.
No, this is the klipot.
That's the left side.
No, that's what we need to decide. I'm sorry. He's going to say this in a different place. You're right. He mekabel mitzad smol misfirat hagvura hanikret betin shel mala. You're right. Okay. I went ahead of myself. Sorry about that. Okay. You'll see what I was referring to. I mixed it up. Sorry about that. She din gamur. Din gamur is gvura with no chesed and no rachamim.
But this can't happen, and this hasn't happened. This is just theoretical, right?
I don't know if that's the case. We'll see if that's the case. We'll see.
But then the world would be destroyed.
We'll see. Continue to analyze. He mekabelet mitzad smol. I said v'harei he levada dana et habriot bedin gamur ubekoshi. And then she, the aleph daled nun yud, judges the world with din gamur and koshi and difficulty. Umeoreret ba'olam, and then she raises up in the world milchamot, wars, gedolot, big wars, the cholaim, sicknesses, COVID-19, World War I, World War
D-Day,
II,
October 7th,
October
9/11,
7th. Now we can understand, right?
tornado. Or
Mishunim umitot raot, and also kinds of weird ways people die and terrible ways people die. V'dever v'cherev v'ra'av u'shvi u'biza. 5 again. Dever, cherev, ra'av, shvi, biza.
That's from Aravit, right?
Yes,
Save us from this and this.
exactly.
Yeah, all right.
Ad shi gamer hadin, until the din is completed. Oy lahem abriot hapogot beoto hadin she'en sham rachamim klal. Woe unto those who receive din with no rachamim at all.
These are the sufferers of those things, those decrees.
Correct.
And
Okay.
then once that happened, there's a cleanliness, and you go back.
Then people, what generally happens,
They wise up,
how do they wise up?
start doing mitzvahs.
They make teshuvah.
That's what they broke.
Look what happened, right? The one thing we could say about October 7th is after October 7th, what happened?
People are learning to see people are learning more. People are
And the
keeping Shabbat.
yichud, people are coming together, which was yeshno am echad mifuzar mufurad. What does Esther say? Les knos kol hayudim. That is the problem, the pirud, the separation between Jewish people. This is what brings. This is avarot chamurot.
And had you hear the Megillah together. You dance with each other. You have a seudah with each other.
Right, so you take care of the ani, you fix his relationship with Hashem and the Shamayim, because he doesn't complain he doesn't have, because on Purim he has a lot, right? You fix relationships between your fellow, because you don't give Mishlach Mana only to people you like, give it to someone you don't like.
Or someone who hates you. You don't hate anybody.
Okay, right, or you give it to someone who you have a relationship issue with, someone who you're staying away from, right? That's the whole concept we read yesterday. Azov to Azov, right? It says, you're really going to not help him? No, you're going to help him. Why are you going to help him? Because it's an opportunity Hashem is giving you to repair the relationship. Maybe he'll fix himself. If you're distancing yourself from him because he's making avonot, then he will see that you're helping him, and then he'll realize how beautiful the Torah is, and he'll do mitzvot. And if you hate him, because that's if you hate him. If he hates you, okay, but there's a different interpretations. It's the grammar there can go both ways. The preferential way is he hates you, even though the pasuk seems to imply that you hate him.
The
Okay,
hater is the one with the issue with the masa and his donkey.
It can be either. It can be that I hate him. What do I mean I hate him? I distance myself from him because he makes avonot, and I don't want to be influenced by those avonot. Atichaber la rasha. Do not attach yourself to rasha. Right? Right? So separate. You have to separate from a person who's evil. That's the right thing to do. That's called hatred as far as the Torah is concerned. When you don't say hello to someone for 3 days in a row, when normally you would say hello to them for 3 times in a row, that's called sin'ah. That's why it says, Al tisna achicha b'levavecha. People don't think I don't hate anybody. Well, if there's anybody around that you don't say hi, goodbye to, for 3 days in a row, where previously you say, or three times in a row that you used to say hello to them, now you hate them as far as the Torah is concerned, and then you have to reveal why you hate them. You have to talk to them. That's al tisnat achicha b'vavecha, lo taseh in the Torah. Okay, but so there's an example where I'm legitimately allowed to stay away from that person. He does tremendous sins. He's involved in arayot. He's involved in terrible. I don't want to be influenced by that, so I'm going to stay away from him. But if his chamor is rovetzet tachat masao, I have to help him. That's one, which means what? Now, even though I have a legitimate reason for distancing myself from him, I still can't because he's still my brother. No, that is the Torah, what it's saying. The Torah is commanding you to do it. That's not an option. It's not an option. It's required. The rest of the time, you're justified in staying away from him. Not here. Here, you have to connect him. You have to azov to azov imo with him. That's one. Now let's change it. Okay? You don't hate him. He hates you. Generally, the response when someone hates you is hate them back. But let's say you have a chasidat kadisha. He doesn't hate anybody. Okay? He hates you. You still don't have a relationship with him because he hates you. He doesn't come near you. Why does he hate you? Who knows? Maybe he thought you did something. You didn't do it. You didn't do anything. You didn't do it. You're innocent. Right? He doesn't come to you to talk to you about what his problem is. He just doesn't talk to you. Right? You see his chamor. What do? You help him. Why? Because then he's going to realize you're not a bad guy. Maybe his hatred is going to go away, and then you'll be able to repair the relationship. So either way, whether you learn sona'acha is the person who owns the animal or the person who doesn't own the animal, either way it works. That's right. But this is din. This is not lifnei mishul. The Torah is commanding you. It's not giving you an option. There are certain ways. If it's a kohen, he doesn't have to go into bet kvarot. If it's a big Talmid Chacham, he doesn't have to help
This is a
him.
donkey in the cemetery who's having
I don't know.
No.
Just it gives
All right.
examples. A Kohen doesn't have to violate the Torah in order to go into an en aseh doche aseh velo taseh. Right? It's an aseh. It's an aseh. It's mitzvah taseh. Azov ta'azov imo. Right? It's a mitzvah taseh. But if the Kohen is a lo taseh, he can't go into Beit Kvarot. And as I say, kidashta, he has to be kadosh. Then he doesn't have to violate to go into a Beit cemetery.
If you're on your way and you see a dead body.
Imo, what does imo mean? Imo means that you guys are equal, sort of. Okay, but if it's a big Talmid Chacham, a big Gadol Hador, huge rabbi, he doesn't have to help him because then it's demeaning to the Torah that's inside him to help him.
Talmid Chacham Gadol Hador
Does not have to help.
Because it's the meaning to help him. But the donkey.
And let's understand that out. If he's truly a Talmid Chacham,
he would know that
he's not hating anybody because no one's going to influence him negatively. So the only example of it's a Talmid Chacham is the guy hates him.
Okay.
Why does he hate him? Because Amaretz Gamur. It says Amaretz hates a Talmid Chacham. Right? Why does he hate him? Because he's Talmid Chacham. Right? So then that's not going to get fixed necessarily by him helping him, number one. It doesn't mean he can't help him. He can. Doesn't have to, though. It's not required. The mitzvah, the mitzvah to say is not there. So he's patur.
So it's an optional.
It's optional. Whereas everybody else is not optional, him it's optional. And a real Talmid Chacham really doesn't view themselves as a Talmid Chacham. So at the end of the day, they're always going to help. Okay. Right? Let's continue on. Oh, said that already. Okay, we did that already. Okay, no, we didn't. She judges the people because now she's receiving only from the din, from the gvura, right? So she then meets out gvura, she meets out koshi and din. Until the din is finished. And then what happens when they finish? Like we said, then they make teshuvah, they start changing their ways, and that one again reinvigorates the chesed to come to the world. Woe to those creatures that encounter din without rachamim. Now continue on inside. Now we're back in the Shaare Orah. And then some difficult things come because now you've sort of shut down the side of the chesed because of the din, because of the way you're behaving. Not you, person is behaving. You shut down the chesed, and now only the gvura is giving the shefa to the malchut, and therefore the malchut is going to mete out all kinds of. The world is suffering, and the world is in chesron, it's missing. All kinds of afflictions and sicknesses. This is what I was referring to. And sometimes the deeds are so bad that all of the tzinorot from above are closed.
Malchut is dry. There's a dam.
V'nimshachot mitzinorot hachitzonot kochot raot. It's so bad in this world that even the din is the tzinor of the din is closed.
So no right side, no left side.
So therefore, now the malchut has to receive sustenance from someplace. So she receives sustenance from outside. Kochot raot. Kochot raot. We're going to talk about that in a second.
From the outside.
Hanikraim mayim ra'im. There's mayim tovim. Even the din, technically, is mayim tovim. Right. Baruch, dayan, ha'emet. You make a bracha. What does it say? Just like you make a bracha on the tov, you make a bracha on the ra'ah. Why? Because the ra'ah, when it's ra'ah, it's not ra'ah, it's tov. As long as it's...
Just say make a bracha on the loto, less tov.
Okay, we don't. That's getting too complicated for regular people. Let's continue. Okay. Ve'az kol hamekomot b'tzar. Then every place is in tzar. Ve'az hu churban aratzot v'akirat malchuyot v'galuyot kashot v'raot. And when the chitzonim, when the shefa to the malchut is coming from the chitzoniyot, like we said, the mayim ra'im, then there's destruction of lands, and there is uprooting of kingdoms, and all kinds of galuyot, kashot v'raot, and all kinds of galut, which means exiles. So we have a limited, and then we have a more global. Let's look and see what this is, and then we're going to finish up.
Okay, the more severe, the more global it is.
Well, if it's a global problem, it becomes a global. Then all the tzinorot are closed. Kochot hara nimshachot mitzonot hachitzonim. That's what I was getting ahead of myself. Okay, that's why I messed up before. Kochot hara v'klipot ba'im mimerkavat tum'ah. Ze lu'umat ze bara Elokim, it says. Okay, let's continue. Shehi michutz la'olam ha'atzilut. That's outside of the world of the Atzilut. V'lechen nikraim tzinorot chitzonim, and that's why they're called tzinorot chitzonim. The kol hakoach shel kochot hara v'klipot, and all of the now, where do these come from?
Ein Sof.
Everything comes from the Ein Sof, okay, but there's no ra that comes from the Ein Sof directly.
If everything comes from the Ein Sof, then how does something not come from the Ein Sof?
Okay, because we have to understand what is the concept of shvirat hakelim.
Separation.
It allowed there to be the creation of Ra. Givura is not Ra. Givura is Tov. It's less Tov, but it's still Tov.
Less Tov than Chesed, but still Tov.
It's still Tov because it's coming direct. Okay? Ra is a factor of Shvirat HaKelim, which allowed there to be the creation of Ra. The Gevurah is not created. The Gevurah, the Atzilut, is not created. The Gevurah, the Atzilut, always existed. Right? Right? So all the Sfirot, even the ones that are on the left, even the Kav Smol, Tzimtzum just allowed them to be perceived, but they're always there because they're Tov. But the Shvirat HaKelim allowed there to be the creation of the Ra.
So where
not
does
Lo
Shvirat come
Tov,
from?
Ra. It comes from the Shvirat HaKelim. When we learn about that, we'll get more details about that.
What Shvira is that?
It's a world, doesn't have an Atzilut to it because that Atzilut is all Tov, right? It's a world that has same structure, but it's Tum'ah. How is it that the Chartumim were able to do their thing?
They used the Kochot Tum'ah.
Correct.
Oh,
And
they're
but how do we understand? Hashem allows that to happen. So it's still controlled by Hashem, but He allows it to happen.
It's controlled by Hashem, but it doesn't come from the Ein Sof.
It comes from the Shvirat HaKelim, which is part of the creation of the world. God did this how He created the world, right? So technically, it's indirect. That's why I use the word, for lack of a better term, indirect. It's indirect because there needed to be a Ra in order to have appropriate choice. But the Ra doesn't come directly from Hashem. The Ra comes indirectly, but Hashem allows it. Okay? Let's continue. This is complicated. Let's get through this, and then I'll stop for today, and then we'll have to reflect on it. Okay. So these are tzinorot chitzoniyim. These are tzinorot, pipes that are outside, which means outside of the Atzilut. Yes. The kol hakoach shel kochot hara v'klipot, and all of the strength and all of the power for the evil forces and the klipot, ba mikilkul shel tzinorot hashefa shemereim lahem, comes because when the shefa of the Atzilut is completely stopped, right? When all the tzinorot are closed, right? This is what what allows them to have their Kamosha Bi'er B'Nefesh HaChaim, like it was explained in Rav Chaim Volozhin Sefer. I'm trying to figure out what to learn on Wednesdays. I think that's going to be a little too complicated for most. Nefesh Chaim is Chaim Volozhin.
Yes, a student of
Gra.
Right.
I think I might do Mishlei in the Gra and Mishlei.
What about Evan Hayasod?
Again, this is going to be something that has to be that it's a pshat also. It can't just be also dot, okay? Because we're talking about a Wednesday night class for men and ladies. So I think what I'm going to do is Sefer Mishlei, because how many people study Tanakh? Not enough, right? We'll do Sefer Mishlei with Perush Agra. And therefore, when we go through that Perush, for those who understand, they'll see a lot of things that he's really saying. And for those who don't, we'll see beautiful things that the Gra said from Mishlei, which is great because that talks about behavior. It's like the original Mesilat Yesharim. Let's continue.
Right before you finish before Pesach and then go right to Pirkei Avot.
Perfect, exactly. She'atzmut chiyutam shel kochot chatuma, the essence of the sustenance of the kochot hatuma, the mazikim and the destroyers, shenivru mechataav, that are created from the sins, who rak mi pegam hachet v'harisa, only from the pegam hachet, which is the sin of Adam Harishon, right? The harisa and the destruction shegaram bekochot ve'olamot hakdoshim, and the destruction that was caused by those sins, right, in the upper worlds. Shemizen imshach lahem shefa chiyov, they need to see or me'at, and that's why they receive a little bit, because the rock can only exist if it receives a little bit from the tov. If there's only ra, it does not exist. It has no existence even in this world. There has to be a shemesh, there has to be a nitzotz of tov in there. Okay? That's why hasheker en lo raglaim. In order for a sheker to exist, it has to have some emet inside. Okay?
Kuf goes down, the resh goes down, there's no raglaim. But the shin, kuf is like one
Yeah,
side,
okay,
resh
down,
one side,
right.
And the shin holding is on one side. So it's not kesher. Kesher has the shin in the middle. So kesher is strong. Sheker has the shin on the outside.
Very nice. I like that. That's good.
I think that's Bati Lagani, Rebbe.
Very nice. Chazak. Okay, let's continue on. And they come by the ways of pipes that are akalkalot, which means crooked. Why they're crooked? Because they're not coming from the ilan. The kavanato piyamashal shevi reshit chokhmah, and the kavanah that he's talking about is based on what it's that he was brought in Reshit Chokhmah, which is another what the book Reshit Chokhmah.
No one really studies that.
That's
too scary, right?
Mashal silon ma'im. It's like mashal to a gathering of water. Haba min ha'ma'ayan lebrecha, that comes from the ma'ayan, the fountain or the geyser, to the brecha. The ma'ayan, by the way, is the chokhmah, and the brecha is the binah. Okay. And the ma'im from the brecha goes to give sustenance to many gardens and orchards and vineyards, right? Uba echad, and one person came, veitau el ha'ashpa larik, and he pointed those wonderful tzinorot to the garbage, the ashpa is garbage. Makom she'en bo to'ela, to a place where there is no purpose. So instead of the water going to the garden, it's going on the cement.
He dammed up the river, now it's overflowing.
So the shefa that's coming from the ma'ayan going to the brecha, and from the brecha coming to the garden, to the vineyard, he moves it. So now it's going to the concrete. It's going to something that is not garden in Pardes. Shebal hamayan koes alav, and the person who is the person who owns the fountain is angry with him. Why? Because he shifted it from where it's supposed to go. Now it's going towards a waste. Achar shibitel ashkot ginato tavot, and that's when he stopped giving proper sustenance to the gardens, the good gardens. And also he broke. Another example, he broke the pipe completely. And the person who sinned, what he did is break the pipes of shefa, messes them up. From going to the place that is appropriate. This has latu shikvar zeravatala, having relations with goyot and things like that. This is all homosexuality. That's why those are some of the greatest sins, because it's exactly describing what's happening here. When a person, exactly, again, food is different. This is much more serious, right, because it's coming directly from the Yesod. Right? Okay. Molchim el makom shichis et hamelech, and he goes to a place. Now the king is angry. Shu mashke et hamakom shetzarich liot yavesh v'charev, because he's giving sustenance to a place that's supposed to be dry and destroyed. By moving the sinor from where it's supposed to be going to a place where it's not supposed to be going, that place is now getting sustenance from the holy, right? And it's not supposed to be. That place is supposed to be charev and yavesh. Shu mashket hamakom shetzrich lo yavesh v'charev, them kochot hara v'klipot. And these are the kochot of the ra and the klipot. Then imshal, that was the mashal. What's the nimshal? This is what the Reshi Chochmah brings. Shebimkom she'ashechina tishre b'Yerushalayim. Now we're going to get to today. That's why, instead of the Shekhinah having presence in Jerusalem, which is an example of everything being properly directed to where it's supposed to go, the tashpia shefa nevuah Torah bracha la'am Yisrael, and then she will give shefa of prophecy and Torah and bracha to all of Am Yisrael. Holechet ha-Shekhinah legalut. The Shekhinah goes into the galut. The chol ha-shefa magia l'umot ha'olam, and all this sustenance goes to the goyim. Ulukochat hara v'klipot. And now you'll see why the Mekubalim were so focused on praying that the Shekhinah should return back to Yerushalayim. Because we spend a lot of time praying that we should return to Jerusalem. And that's good, you can pray for that, but it's very selfish. Instead, we should pray that the Shekhinah should return to Jerusalem. Of course, that requires us to change our ways and behaviors and things like that. And if the Shekhinah returns to Jerusalem, then we will return to Jerusalem.
Don't we have to return first, though? The Shekhinah follows us.
Yeah, but if prayer is what? What's the power of prayer? If two people need the same thing, my goal is to pray for someone else.
You'll get what you want.
And then I'm answered first. So
you're playing in Kali.
So if I'm praying for the Shekhinah to return back to her husband,
you'll get there first.
I will get there first, and then there you go. That's how one understands the real yesod of the tefillah. All right, let's finish on top, and then we'll save the rest for next week. So minim shachot mitzonot hachitzonot kochot raot hanikraim ma'im ra'im. That's this one on top of Shaare. Va'az kol hamekomot betzar. Then every place is in difficulty. Va'azu churban aratzot va'akirat malchuyot v'galuyot kashot v'raot. Okay, let's stop here. Baruch Adonay leolam, amen ve'amen.
Got to mention 2 weeks.
What's that?